Well, hello. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Chef Jen. I work with employee health and well-being as a nutrition outreach coordinator. I'm a dietitian, I'm a chef, and I am here to cook a heart-healthy meal for you. So we're doing chicken and spring veggie stew. Yeah. So if you don't know, if you follow a heart healthy diet, it helps to manage diabetes if you are a diabetic. But it can also help prevent diabetes, and it can also help you to improve your heart health. So this means we're going to be using some low sodium products in this meal, and we're going to load it up with a bunch of veggies to really help us feel nice and full and get all that heart healthy goodness that we need. All right, so first thing I want to talk about to you is about cutting up these vegetables, all right? I'm going to show you a few things here. Hopefully, you can get a good view. So we're going to need celery, onion, and carrots. Celery, onion, and carrots is also known as your mirepoix, and it's usually the base to very many stews and soups and sauces, especially in French cooking. So basically, I like to take my celery first, and when I cut it up, I cut it in half so it's not too long, and I don't have to mess around with it. And then I cut it right down the middle as well, just to make it a little bit smaller and a little bit easier. So if you ever do a crudité plate, or you get a fruit tray or veggie tray with ranch, you can cut them like this, and it'll make it a little bit easier to handle and work with. If you want them bigger, you can always just cut it like this. But for the stew, I want to have it just a little bit. I want them to be able to cook down and get the good flavor out of it. So I cut them in half like that, and then I put them together. And the big thing is making sure you hold your knife properly too, okay? So you want to make sure that your hand is wrapped around the handle. Okay, your fingers are not on top, your thumb isn't slipped up here. It's all tucked around, holding the knife properly. And you put the tip down and you cut with the base of the knife. So you push down at the base of the knife and you push the food through, not really moving the knife so much. Because the more you move the knife, the bigger chance you might have of cutting yourself. So that's why we always want to be careful with that. So again, you just gently cut through. Your knife should be in pretty good condition where it shouldn't be very hard for you to cut through these. If it is very hard for you to cut and you're putting a lot of oomph into your cutting, you should probably look into either getting your knives sharpened or buying new ones, depending on what kind you have. It never hurts to invest in really good knives so that you can make this great food at home. So carrots, I peel them, wash them off, and then I do the same thing. I'll cut it in half and then cut these guys in half again. So because these roll around, it's easier for me to put my thumb and fingers on this one side and move the knife in the middle. And just keep an eye as to where it's going, so you don't cut yourself, okay? So the big thing with, carrots, because they're round and they roll, you want to make sure that they don't move anywhere. So you got yourself a nice flat surface here. And then again, you just cut the same way. You want them to try and be somewhat the same size. They don't have to be perfectly uniformed. It's nice, though, the closer they are in size to all of the vegetables that are going to be in this, especially in the mirepoix, so that you can, they all cook evenly. Because if you got really small ones and really big ones, they're obviously going to cook at different rates. So now I want to show you, before I get to the onion, I want to show you these other things. Because look, if you cut your onion and then you go to cut other vegetables or even fruits, it's going to transfer that onion scent or that onion flavor and all the onion juices onto your other products. So it's all going to taste like it's going to have an onion flavor to it. So if you forget, make sure you wash your knife in between. All right. But here's asparagus too. Asparagus is in this. Asparagus is a spring fruit vegetable, not a fruit, it's a vegetable. And you should see them popping up around here, around the Delaware region in about late April and May time frame. So the cool thing about asparagus is you can cut these very easily. So they know where it's ripened, I should say. So the stalk right? You just take this and you kind of bend it, and where it naturally breaks off is where like the thicker fibrous part's going to be. That's going to be the chewy part that you don't really want to like gnaw on, and you can just get rid of that. So you just kind of gently break it off. Now you can kind of lovingly coerce it to go a different way here, but you generally just want to go ahead with the natural bend of the asparagus. And then I cut these guys probably about like, you know, maybe an inch in length or so. And so I'm kind of putting them in a row like this so I can keep an eye as to their length. Green beans too. I love fresh green beans. Green beans are definitely a little bit more towards the end of spring. You can get them really at any time. These are French green beans or haricots verts or tiny green beans, TGBs. I like these just because, you know, I just like them. I like the little thinner. I think that they give a nice little crisp and crunch. I just cut off the tips, put them together, and just cut off the tips and the ends so you don't have the stringy parts. And if there is any stringy, so most of these tiny green beans don't have too much of the string on here, so you don't have to like go in and peel off the string. See, there's really nothing that comes off. So it's another fun thing about these guys. And about the same length for them. You're in here. So the onion, cutting an onion, this is one of the first things that I always go over in my classes with the students on campus, with the employees on campus, is how to cut an onion, because I tell you, this is one of the biggest, I feel like if you know how to cut an onion, you'll be really successful in the kitchen. So when you have an onion, right, so you have the top and then you have the roots. So there's not really any roots hanging down here, but sometimes there's some little roots that are hanging down, right? So what you want to do is you want to cut this right in half down the middle so that each side has like the hair and its feet. All right, so that's how we kind of think of it. We don't want to cut it in half and detach it from its feet and its head. Okay, we want each like turn it into like a twin, okay, and pull it apart. So when you have it like that, you want to make sure the top part here, or the hair, is the part that you're going to be cutting, because we do cut our hair, right, or shave it. All right, so you want, that's how you can remember to cut that part. You want to leave this part, the root end, intact, because we don't want to cut off our legs. Cutting off legs is not a good thing, but we cut our hair. So another reason to do that is because it also helps to hold this onion together when we dice it, and you'll see what I mean. So some chefs do cut off both ends. For, you know, when you get more comfortable with it, you're welcome to do that. But for me and for this teaching portion, I always keep this end together to kind of hold all the pieces together, and I'll show you in just a second. So peel the one layer of skin off of the onion. And sometimes there's like a little sheer translucent skin that's in between. Make sure you get that off too, because it's very slippery. There's not one on this one. So now onions have little ridges that go across, okay? So notice, this is the feet side. You can see it, right? So I'm going to cut 3/4 of the way back. Okay, I was going to put my blade right here. So I still got all of this room left on the onion. But I am going to push it all the way down, all right? But I'm not going all the way back because I'm going to make the dice. And this is why you need this part to hold it together, okay? So now you got nice little like fanned edges, see? Now, being careful to have a nice flat palm, you want to come in on the side, right? Depending on how big you want your onions to be diced, depends on how many slits you do. This is a smaller onion, so I'm probably just going to do one, maybe I'll do two. I'll do one. So I'm going to go halfway, and this is going to be the same way like I do the ridges, okay? I'm going to cut about half of the way back, 3/4 of the way back, all right, but not all the way through. So when you put your fingers, tuck in those fingertips so you don't cut off your fingers, right? So you do like a little claw, all right? Tip of the knife goes down, base of the knife is what cuts it. So you just go ahead and come down, and then here is your diced onions. So that's what all the slicing and the cutting in half, that's where that gets you. So you need a whole onion in here, or, you know, about about 2 cups or so. So that could be a good size onion for you. I got about 2 medium onions in here. All right, so I'm putting that all in together. So my mirepoix consists of celery, onion, carrots, but I also have some diced minced garlic in here too. So I'm gonna turn my burner on to about medium heat and drizzle some olive oil in here. So now olive oil is not always the best thing to saute, or the best oil to saute with, because it can burn up at a lower temperature than other oils. And sometimes it can really ruin the taste. So you always want to be you want to be aware of how hot your pot gets. All right, if you start to see steam coming up from this, you want to turn down the heat and probably dump out the oil and start again. So we just want the oil to get warm. And then we're going to add the mirepoix and the garlic in first, and we're going to let them cook for a bit. So I have this good sized stock pot here. You can use like a Le Creuset Dutch oven or something, whichever you could use to fit all this in here, okay? All right, so let me just clean up real quick here. I'll talk a little bit more about heart health. So olive oil is very good for your heart. It's been found to be beneficial from the Mediterranean diet studies, right? So Mediterranean diet focuses on a lot of plant-based products as well as fish. So plant-based meaning things like fruits and vegetables, but also whole grains. So those are also plants too, right? And then fish, the salmon with their beneficial omega-3 fatty acids, right? As well as other fish besides salmon. You know, you can have cod, you can have any sort of, indigenous Mediterranean fish that you might like. Here in the States, though, it tends to be a lot of cod, halibut, trout even, as well as salmon. And there's so many more others. Haddock, right? So, all right. So I'm starting to smell a little bit of the olive oil, so I don't want this to get too hot. All right. You are welcome to use canola oil as well too. Canola oil is also what's called a monounsaturated fat. So olive oil is a monounsaturated fat, and canola oil is a monounsaturated fat. So monounsaturated fat means that it's a good fat for you to eat. So something like, avocado as well too. That's a good fat to eat. Saturated fats. So those are found in any animal products and in things like coconut oil as well too. And any butter and baked goods and stuff like that. You'll find saturated fat. So saturated fat, it's okay to have in moderation, but that is what leads to the cholesterol buildup in your body, not the cholesterol from the food that you eat. So do not be afraid to eat eggs. Eggs are a good thing to eat, but everything in moderation, right? Too much of a good thing can also, that can also lead to an over excess, which anything in excess is usually never a good thing for us. So these guys are going to saute, let them sit a little bit here. They're going to, as one of my chefs would say, they're going to sweat, which means they're getting warm enough for their juices to start to come out and really the aroma is going to come through. And every time I cook just the celery, onion, carrots, and garlic, it always, people are like, oh my gosh, what are you cooking? It smells so good. Celery, onion, and carrots, some garlic. Right? Oh, it's kind of funny to think that, just that. Oh, just that. All right. So these will take a little bit of time here. I would say probably at least 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, look, I found a piece of onion that's not breaking up very good. There we go. It's okay. It's not the end of the world if some of these vegetables aren't cut perfectly. It's absolutely fine. And the fact that they're not cooked perfectly is a better sign of like a good home cooked meal. I think, than having everything perfectly uniformed, right? Okay, so another thing that we're going to be adding into this is chicken. So I did do chicken breast and I cubed it. You're going to need about 2 to 3 cups of chicken breast. And that is probably like just under, like somewhere around 1.5 to 2 pounds of chicken, depending on if there's any like excess fat or some other things you might have to trim off. And we all know that chicken's a little bit better for us than beef. It's a little bit lower in saturated fat and stuff. But you know, but excess chicken as well too. You know, it all depends on what you're eating, you know, and what else you're eating with this. So let's keep an eye. I want to make sure they don't burn. My big thing is whenever I have garlic in here, like with not a whole lot of other stuff in here, like the garlic always burns up, and to me, it's like burnt popcorn. You know, you can't get rid of that taste or that smell. That's like my little pet peeve in cooking. That and the seeds from bell peppers. They're not fully cleaned out, and I get bell pepper seeds with my bell peppers. Oh, that's insane. So we all got our own little things, right? So, if you wanted to, you could omit the chicken out of this and just use veggie broth and make this, you know, a vegan meal. But I like the chicken in here because I want this to be more of a stew, and I want this to have a little bit more of a full meal, you know, feeling like you're full and that this is a good hearty meal, but using spring vegetables. So this isn't going to be too bad to eat when it's warmer outside. Sometimes, you know, those hefty stews can really weigh you down in a way. Also make you feel, you know, on a hot day, who wants to eat all that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in the green beans and asparagus because these guys do take longer to cook. I am throwing them in here now. Okay, and I'm just going to let this go for a little bit. Move this over here. And I am going to make sure you keep some bowls by you or something, or a plate, okay? So the bowl that I had my mirepoix in, I am leaving because I'm going to then take the veggies out and then cook the chicken in this. So it's a one pot sort of deal, right? Either way, you could start with the chicken and then put the veggies in, but you still would have to transfer something in and out of somewhere. Okay. I can smell, it smells so good. And look at the color in here too. Beautiful greens and oranges and yellow. So I did use a mixture of carrots that are like orange and yellow. Still have same good qualities. All carrots do. So, you know, it is true that carrots do make your eyes sparkle because they have vitamin A, and the specific vitamin A that is good for your eyes. So make your eyes sparkle. Also helps to see a little bit better in the dark. So eat your carrots for that. So we just keep on keeping on with these guys here. Now, if you like, depending on how adventurous you want to be, the asparagus ends that I broke off, you could always save that to make like a veggie stock with. So like the carrot ends that you've chopped off, the carrot peels, the onion peels, some of the celery leaves, and you know, all of these little odds and ends and pieces. You can throw them in some hot water with a little bit of just a little bit of salt and some herbs, and just let them sit and make your own vegetable stock. Strain it out, obviously, or vegetable broth, whichever you want to call it. Strain it out before you use it though. But that's a good way to help kind of use all of the fruits and vegetables to their maximum, and then throw whatever else extra in the compost pile, you know, to help be a little bit more sustainable. Throw it out in the garbage though. I won't hold anything against you. But those are just extra little pointers too. Because when we also help to take care of the environment, we also help to take better care for ourselves too. Okay, so in here, so I was talking about how you could, if you wanted to, you could make this a vegetarian or a vegan dish by getting rid of the chicken and using vegetable broth instead of chicken broth. So I also have in here beans. Beans are a great protein, and they are also very good fiber. So beans are also a complex carbohydrate. If you're familiar with diabetes talk, that is the kind of carbohydrates that you want to be eating. So things like whole grains or like oatmeal, barley, brown rice, quinoa, beans, those sorts of things are all the things that you want to eat that are good for your body, okay? Number one, it takes a lot for your body to break them down because they are in their whole state. Whereas you think of, like white flour and let's say white sugar, there's nothing for your body, there's nothing really your body has to do for that to break it down. It just absorbs into your system, into your bloodstream. So that's why those refined carbohydrates, or the carbohydrates that are things like, white rice and white pasta and all-purpose flour, that's why those can get absorbed so easily and sends the sugars up so fast. So, there's nothing wrong with having that. It's good to mix in your whole grains. So they say make half of your grains that you eat or half of the carbs that you eat as whole grains. So, continuing on with my little lesson here, I hope you're taking notes. There's going to be a quiz at the end. Can't get the recipe until you pass the quiz. I'm just kidding. There's no quiz. But when you have the brown rice, you still have like the husk or the hull or the outside on, right? When you have beans, it takes a lot to break them down. It takes more for your body to break it down to get at those nutrients. So the longer it kind of takes in your system, and that's where it helps to make you feel full for a little bit longer. But your body also uses energy to break that down. So therefore, when you eat these sorts of carbohydrates, it slowly kind of increases your sugars. Just slowly, instead of that big giant spike where you crash down afterwards. It's a nice easy rise and then a nice leveling off fall. Kind of like, instead of like a thrill ride at the park, right? You're just on the carousel going up and down on the horse, right? Okay, so now I just want these guys to be a little bit tender. The onions are getting a little translucent, as you can see, so they're not as white. They get a little bit of a clearness to them. It smells delicious. So I'm going to take this off the burner and empty them into my bowl here that I used. So now this doesn't have to be all completely out and perfect, okay? You're going to have bits and pieces that are going to stay in here, and that's okay. Just scrape out what you can of the obvious large pieces. We're going to add a little bit more oil to the pan, and then we're going to add the chicken. So this pan is going to be a little warm, so the chicken is going to probably sizzle as soon as we put this in, which is fine. So we want the chicken to be, so there's no more pinks, no more pink that we can see. Just wash my hands real quick. Always being careful for food safety when you touch raw meats and chickens and fish, to always wash your hands before you touch anything more, so you don't possibly contaminate anything. So, and I also like to switch to something I can put in the dishwasher. Fork. Okay, now here, I am going to add just a little bit of salt. I'm going to talk about salt in just a moment. So this is I love this. This is called a salt pig. It's literally pig. You just keep it on the counter and just sprinkle a little bit. Right? Just a little dash. So, I'm going to let this go. All right, so the other bonus to the carbohydrates, just finishing that talk up real quick, okay? It does also help to lower your cholesterol, because the type of fiber that is in complex carbohydrates, and that's in beans and in like whole grains and in your oatmeal and sometimes even in your Cheerios, that's the kind of fiber that helps to collect any of that cholesterol that might be floating around in your body, and it binds it all together and takes it away. And then that makes your body have to make new cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol that you want in your body. Good cholesterol is heart protective. The bad cholesterol is not. I always suggest low sodium broth And whenever you have any beans, look, canned beans are the way to go, all right? Unless you do want to let them soak overnight and then cook them for a few hours, you're welcome to do that. If you have an instant pot, you can do dried beans and make it a lot faster, or a pressure cooker. But there is nothing wrong with buying canned beans. Trying to find beans that are actually low sodium or no added salt is a good thing to do too, all right? Compare, because sometimes low sodium cans of soup, low sodium cans might be less than like some that aren't, okay? So let's see. So here is reduced sodium beans. I'm covering up the full name, okay? Reduced sodium black beans. And you look at the label, and there's 210 milligrams of sodium in these, and that's reduced sodium. Here is some organic ones that were actually cheaper than that, and they have only 125 milligrams of sodium in it. So I didn't really have to look for low sodium black beans when I have them right here. So it's always good to look at the labels, all right? Organic ones don't always have less salt. Whoops. Sometimes they have more, but that's why I always tell people, look, you have to know what you're eating. That's why you got to look at your labels, okay? So, back to the beans. Take the can of beans, dump it out in a strainer, okay? Rinse them out under running water. Get rid of all the extra. Don't keep any of the bean juice, okay? So that's where all the salt is. When you rinse them under the water, the cool running water, and just let it kind of go for a little bit, it helps to wash off extra salt. So that's a little bonus there for you. Right? Okay, so the chicken is going pretty good, all right? I wanted to add my herbs sooner. Oopsies. Okay. I know I'm not talking inside track. All right. Herbs de Provence. Herbs de Provence. My cousin went to France. She speaks French. She was in France for a while growing up. So herb de Provence is a blend of dried herbs, okay? There is, let me see if I can remember all this. Savory, thyme, chervil, oregano, and lavender. So, no, don't freak out about lavender, okay? You're not eating soap. There's multiple types of lavender, okay? There's lavender that is culinary lavender, and then there's the lavender that's in your essential oils and in your soap. There's all different strains of lavender. This is an edible one. This is something that just tastes totally different. And I honestly think that herb de Provence and chicken is like a meant to be pairing. I use this when I make chicken noodle soup. I just think that it's a great combo. So, put that off for a second. So I am putting these, I'm going to put this in here with the chicken. So we need about 3 teaspoons. And of course, it's the smallest little opening to get this thing out, to get the stuff out of here. So this gets the dried herbs warmed up. You get a little bit of liquid in them, and therefore it rehydrates them and helps to express out the oils and get more flavor from the dried herbs. So when you cut back on salt, you always want to add in some other herbaceous flavors. So this herb de Provence is a great added substitute for any extra added salt. So now I will say salt isn't really a flavor. It's like one of your taste senses, right? Salty, sour, bitter, right? So technically, what does salt taste like? Salt, right? All right, so any sort of herbs are going to add that flavor that you need. Now, if you are used to eating a lot of salt, all right, your taste buds are going to get used to that. So when you decide to start cutting back, it might taste like less flavorful, but it takes time. Okay, your taste buds will adapt to that over time. So for instance, like I used to always drink 2% milk before I was a dietitian. And there's my husband drank skim. And I'm like, I like 2%. And he's like, well, I do skim. And I'm like, can we do 1%? So, I worked my way down to skim. But the 1%, I noticed the difference. I'm like, oh my gosh, this tastes really different. I can taste like the wateriness to this. You know, but I stayed on it for like a week and a half or so. Whenever we were done with the milk, then I, went down to skim milk, and I'm like, oh, I can still really taste this there. This is even watery or whatever, And I'm going through it. But then I ended up having a taste of 2% milk after I got used to drinking skim milk, and I'm like, whoa, this is like heavy cream. Your taste buds will adapt. All right, it just takes time. If you're a smoker, smoking dulls your taste buds. So it might take even longer for when you quit smoking, all right? And when you're cutting back on the salt because you're doing good for your body and your health, all right? It takes time. But your taste buds will adapt. And when you add in things like flavorful things like herbs or vinegars or mustards or something else to give you a good flavor, like real flavor, that's when you're going to start noticing, oh, okay. But it takes time. So don't give up on it, all right? Adjusting to a low salt diet will take time if you're eating a lot of salt, but it'll be all for the better. Don't give up. Stay the course, right? Stay the course. Okay, so I got everything added back in here, all right? I added salt already, so I'm just gonna do a little sprinkle of pepper. I really wish I had some white pepper. White pepper isn't quite as potent as black pepper is, and I keep on meaning to buy it, and I always keep forgetting. Just one of those things where I'm like, I really want to get that. All right, so next I am going to add the chicken stock. So I really like to buy the less sodium chicken stock, and I'll just come out and say it. I like buying Aldi's brand, okay? This organic low sodium chicken stock, I think it tastes great. 140 milligrams of sodium in here, so there's a lot less salt, all right? But there's good flavor. Now, this recipe calls for 4 cups. So you don't have to go measure this out if you get this 32-ounce thing. This is 4 cups. So you can just dump the whole thing right in. Sometimes it's great to not measure and also save yourself the extra dish. Rinse it out, recycle. All right, and then I'm going to add some pasta, okay? So I'm going to let this boil. So turn up the heat a little bit, and I'm going to add pasta. Now, I happen to find, so you can use, I like whole wheat pasta. They have some of the mini whole wheat pastas too, like the whole wheat penne or whole wheat rotinis or something. They have some smaller ones that are really good. I happen to find these are gluten-free. I'm not really a gluten-free person, but these are organic brown rice and quinoa penne. So this is whole grain. So besides, having whole wheat, you can absolutely do, if you want to do the gluten-free, you can. There's nothing wrong with gluten unless you have, celiacs or you actually have a sensitivity to it. But as far as for all of us who have normal digestive tracts, so we don't have to worry about gluten, it's absolutely fine to eat it. That's just what I happen to find, and they're a good size. I don't think this pasta is too big, so when it gets cooked in the broth here, it's not going to be so bad. So I'm saving the beans a little bit closer towards the end because canned beans are already cooked, and I don't want them to get like super mushy. And then I'm also going to add spinach too closer towards the end. Spinach really doesn't need to cook very long at all. I like to use baby spinach. So I just take baby spinach and I'll pick off like the stems at the end. Just grab a handful and kind of peel off the stems, kick them off, and give it just a rough chop, maybe once or twice with the knife. Or you can tear them with your hands too. Because, when you pick up put a spoon in, right? And you got all your veggies, and then you got this huge piece of spinach hanging off. It's not always, the most fun thing, right? So that's why I like to kind of give them a little bit of a chop. And so as you see in here, there's a lot of veggies, okay? We've got chicken in here too. We're going to be adding the pasta. So this is what's going to happen. The pasta is going to absorb some of this water, and it's going to make it more of a stew. You can always add a little bit more stock or broth, or you could add a little bit of water. If you add a little bit of water, add a little bit more herbs and maybe just a tiny little pinch of salt, okay, just to make sure that the flavor is still there. So when it's all said and done, about a cup and a half of this for your serving size, maybe up to 2 cups or so, all right, is going to be about 590 milligrams of sodium. So at first when I saw that, when they did the nutrition analysis for me, I was like, oh, I was really hoping for it to be less. But when I think about everything that's in here, this is a very filling meal, all right? We've got beans, which is protein and fiber. We've got the whole grains, which actually whole grains will have some protein in them too. So you got more protein and fiber. And then you've got the protein from the chicken. So, you know, a cup and a half of this and 590 milligrams of sodium, that's pretty darn good. Most dinners are going to be around 1,000 milligrams or more. So at first when I was like, oh, darn, I was like, oh, you know what? This is good. And this tastes good. I really think the herb de Provence is the key. Using all these herbs are the key. All right. This is going to boil here. Watch pot never boils, right? So I'm going to put a lid on it to help push it along a little bit. Ooh. And we'll just wait. I feel like I'm talking too much right now. Right, Ashley? Maybe fast forward through some stuff, I don't know. So, okay. I'll measure out my pasta. What am I going to do with these things? I should probably put these in the class. Let me pause this. Sorry. I'll pause. Okay, hi, welcome back. That was a quick little break there. So I got the water boiling. I already tossed in the pasta, and it's been about 5 minutes. So my pasta says that it takes about 7 to 10 minutes to get to the texture for it to be done. Usually 7 minutes or so is like al dente, and 10 minutes is when it's softer. I like mine a little bit softer, but you do it to the way you like. So if you like your pasta to be al dente, set it for the 5 minutes, and then come and add the beans and the spinach. If you want it to be a little bit more, so I actually set my timer for 7 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and add the beans and add the spinach. Get in there and kind of work that in. All right. Now the spinach, it's 2 cups of spinach. Okay, so it's gonna, if you put it in a pan, you'd end up with like this much spinach once it's all cooked. So the spinach will cook down. Don't let it frighten you right now. There's like, oh my gosh, where'd all the liquid go? Because it'll be there. And again, you can always add a little bit more if you want. All right. I'm gonna put the lid back on and let it go for about 2 to 2.5 more minutes. All right, so that the pasta is where I like it to be at with like the softness. Okay. So I'm gonna let that happen, and we'll be right back. Okay, here we go. I've killed the heat on my stew, and it's looking beautiful. So much color and vibrance. The green, we all want green after a brown, cold, yucky winter, right? Here. See, it looks lovely. And you can use grated Parmesan, just a little bit, just adds a nice little bit of saltiness to it and an extra little oomph, which I like. I actually don't have any grated, so I'm just doing a little fresh real quick. And let me tell you, if you got a big family to feed, this is going to be a great thing to have, all right? If you're into meal prep, this is going to be a great thing to have too. And you can probably share this with like a neighbor. Like say if you want a buddy that you want, like, let's do meal prep. This would be something you can probably share with them because you're gonna get a good little bit out of here. So, all right, I am hungry. This is actually my dinner, so I am going to go eat right now. And I hope you all enjoy this, and I wish you good health and bon appetit.